Africa. Africans. Africa is free. You have to free your minds from mental slavery. You understand? Hey, I'm on a real African from the day of birth. From the first time my foot touched earth. From the first time I'ma put down my shirt. Everybody out there better be alert. Always know what life is worth. In this life, better put yourself first. Know that life is a blessing, not a curse. If you alive, better know it could be worse. Yaka 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 yo. Africa, Africa. Free up on the mind. After them I tell you to be poor is a crime. But you get rich, you are do more crime. Watch yourself and watch all your time. Just be careful, don't cross the line. Mental slavery, them slave us all. Free up your mind, me I tell you that's all. For everybody out there wants stand tall. Rise up, everybody. Yaka 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 yo. The black nation all around the world. Put the little boys or even little girl. Put the little pale or bright or what. Me no matter what them say, me no matter what you chat. Free up yourself and that's what we say. Freedom is about seen everywhere. Now listen what the Babylon never say. Them only want to say do it everywhere. Yaka 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 yo. Africa, Africa. Your mind from Vanity Fair and be satisfied by having life, knowing with life you have everything and you can reach all your goals. Ain't nothing can keep us down but ourselves. Sing it loud. Hey yo, what me say?
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to some of y'all and peace out to the rest of you. Go ahead and hit the share button because the message is more important than I am. Some may be wondering about the track they just heard because some of y'all already know it. That track was from a man named Scott Amucci. He spells it SKARRA space MUCCI. And I'm assuming the Italian pronunciation of his last name. So in any case, I'm mostly talking about the new sphere, which is the golden sphere, the newer one between the two spheres in which I've ever been active. And I really shouldn't say why no one seems fair. I shouldn't have titled it that, but then again, there's a reason to title it that as well, why no one seems fair and balanced. Now, there's a part of that that has to do with the perception of the listeners. I'm not capable of seeming fair and balanced to someone that's angry, wants their way, and especially if they're legitimately angry about something, but they don't know that I'm either going to deal with something privately behind the scenes, or they don't know what I don't know. In that case, no, nobody can seem fair and balanced, and I'm no exception to that. I mean, if you're in an argument with someone, and you and I are right, but you get an argument with someone, and you know the history, but I don't know it. You may think that I just don't care when I don't jump in and body slam them and elbow them while you're still in the stage of raising your voice. You may really think so. When in fact, I just don't know the history of it. It may not even know if you want me in that argument or that grudge. So that's a part of it, but there's more to it than that. In the golden sphere, as I've said, there are things you could have learned from the manosphere, but you didn't. And I'm also talking to those who are parts of any spheres that are in opposition to it or that are tangential to it, be they offshoots or oppositions or both. Um, you know what? I went and I listened to some of the streams when I had time, and I haven't had time lately, but I do remember that I listened to some of the streams, usually run by the ladies, and they degenerated into obsession about how someone looks. And lately, Crystal Swirls is the one that I've heard do this the most. I've heard many clips of two of her recent streams, and there's this level of obsession with how other ladies look. Stuff I couldn't even notice. What the F is an undertone? I can barely understand what that is. But the conversation degenerates into that. But then again, she'll turn around and make valid points about others that have come before her. Meanwhile, I've sat up and I've looked, waiting on some of the men in the golden sphere to say more. And I haven't found them saying much. I'm not saying that they're not ever there, but usually they're in someone else's live stream. And I guess it is because productive men move in silence. That could be the reason for it. But in these streams, I have seen what commentators oftentimes, they're not content creators, but commentators. They're in there and they will say things like unambiguous dark-skinned black women, this, that, and the other. And on the flip side, I know there are folks that are sitting up saying, you light, bright, high yellow heifers, this, that, and the other. And they'll fill the second half of the sentence in with something negative. Now, in all honesty, I understand. Just like in the manosphere, I understand that when a man talks about the things that women do in the West to drive men away and set themselves up to die alone, and not because they're widows, I know they don't mean all women. That's not possible. Sometimes when ladies sit up and say men, oh, I definitely know they don't mean all men. They might think they mean most men, and in actuality, and they may mean most men, but in actuality, I'll know that no, it's not most men. You and I will know because we understand how most men have to navigate through life, what the options are for most men. Because you and I are most men in that regard. And we'll know one thing is that we'll know she doesn't really mean all if you ask her to think about it. But when people don't specify a behavioral category, when they start talking about a negative behavior, they're going to seem, well, that's how you generalize. And the thing is that generalizations sometimes are necessary, but other times they're not. And one of the ways I've noticed this is when we start talking about not other races, but one race in particular, the one with whom we've had the longest and most sustained contact, not just in the United States, but in the Americas, the Wyatts. We are quick to say, when we start talking about the racist, we are quick to talk about the racist and single them out. The Wyatt supremacists. We don't sit up and say the Wyatts, this, that, and the other, unless we're talking about a cultural difference. They put raisins in their potato salad. Okay, then we might say the Wyatts. But if we start talking about police brutality, we will say killer cops. If we start talking about hate crimes, we will say racist, Wyatt supremacists. Now that's if it's somebody in the golden sphere talking, someone in the manosphere, someone in the divestisphere. I just made that word up. That's what we will do. We're more careful. And I'm not knocking people for being careful. What's bothering me is that we got people that won't be careful at all. They'll hardly think at all about what it is that they're doing and what they're saying. They'll just say anything about And then they'll turn around and they'll make it about a genotypical or phenotypical group. And that's one of the things that's beginning to get on me about the golden sphere. Why is it that no one seems fair and balanced? Well, for one, I mean, if we men are unfair and unbalanced, we're going to get called on it. If we're perceived to be, we're going to be called on it. It's largely the ladies that are doing the speaking, and that's not wrong. And the content creators aren't necessarily sitting up and saying things that are this incendiary. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. What winds up being the case, though, is this. The content creators, this is what I would say to the content creators that are ladies. And I'm not talking about the ones that go in and listen to some of the divestors and the ones that listen to the gender wars. I'm not talking, if that's the case, I'm not talking anyway. We're done with that. Done with you. And if I catch you listening in private, like it's okay, like it's cool. If I catch you pushing the Cynthia G talking point, of course, that's open and obvious. But if I find out that you are a sneak listener or a sneak subscriber, you listen to Cynthia G and subscribe to to her and Bossy's ideas, and then you come in another account and I catch you, done with you too. Because I've already stated, once I find out you're a gender warrior, we're done. And if I catch you and I have proof that it's you, I'm going to expose you. If I don't, I won't. I probably won't even know. There are a lot of ladies slipping in between back and forth, and I don't know who they are. I admit that. I don't know who they are yet. The problem is that they tell on themselves. Not only that, there are ladies that are sick of this stuff. And they're swimming around, and if they find out who you are, or they find out about more than one account that belongs to you, they're going to come and tell some of the guys. And they should. God bless them for it. So what I'm getting at is that, ladies, if you're doing that, you can't even trust each other. But you're the ones I'm not even talking to. But the ones who are not, at least trying not to bring the gender war in, although you're going to do it subconsciously if you don't make a conscious effort not to. It's like racism. If you're not going to be an anti-racist, you're going to wind up with white supremacist ideas. I see that here in Bedouin land in which I live. To turn around and do and say something racist because they're not anti-racist, because that's what's not taught to them. What's had in Tampa? So what I'm saying to some of these ladies that are in the sphere that are content creators, the issue is this: you've been content creators now for a few months, and some of you even read a lot of the chats, the comments. You don't read every one. And for the comments you don't see, it's not your fault. Understandably, you can't see all of them. But sometimes you see comments. And the commentator is sitting up and saying something, and they're saying it about a particular genotypical or phenotypical category, not a behavioral category. Then they attribute a behavior to it. And you're not suggesting to them, yo, let's talk about the behavioral category. I have stated, instead of arguing about how UADSBW feel about you if you're an MLS woman, I have said, use another term like ICSH, inferiority complex suffering hater. Because when you say a US or UADSBW, meaning unambiguous dark-skinned black women feel this, that, and the other, you're actually being unfair. Now that's I'm talking to the commentators when I say that when you write this in the comments, you're being unfair. But I'm also going to say, additionally, that when you, as a content creators, read these, and you don't suggest to them describing the behavior with a behavioral categorical name, even if they make up a new acronym for it, then you miss an opportunity. And it is very true that a lot of listeners are not high IQ, or people just don't pay attention to detail in general. I know that. That's a human trait. I teach a lot of students. They don't pay attention to details when I'm going over English grammar with them. They misspell because they miss details. Because human beings are like that. But when you're going to create content, you have an opportunity to remind them of this. And to be honest with you, if you remind them gently, many of them would say, you know what, that's a good idea, and that would spread. That's not what's going on, though. Sometimes it is, actually, and other times it's not. But that's one reason that it is that no one seems fair and balanced. Listeners and viewers are not going to pay attention to detail, although if we question certain things, we know. But then on the same time, content creators aren't necessarily saying to commentators, wait a minute, hold up. That's not the phenotype or the genotype. That's not who's doing this. It is the mindset. We missed that. Thanks a million, Tampa. I appreciate that. And more important, I'm definitely going to ask y'all to hit the share button. So that's why it is that people will not seem fair and balanced. If I'm going to be honest about it, that's part of the reason why. It has to do with the listener, the average human IQ, and with the content creators not thinking about it, and to which the content creator is not paying attention. We got to pick and choose our words carefully. Now, I've done this enough times to where I don't have to write down everything before I go live or upload. Not everything. Some things I do. It does help me, but sometimes I can extemporaneously jump on live like I did now, not much warning, and I can do this. I don't necessarily have to write it all down ahead of time, but I do have to think quickly and choose my words carefully, or else I'm going to say something unfair and unbalanced. But I'm going to say this too. I now understand why it is that there are some who are pointed, there are many actually who are pointed to some of the ladies in the golden sphere and said they're not fair and anti-black. One, they're confusing commentators with the content creators. That is true. But then secondly, I remember when I mentioned someone who said that she was a troll, that she started off as a troll. This was during my last live. And someone informed me that this lady who started off as a troll didn't start off as a troll for MLS folks, but only for black folks. No. Not for black folks. That's not okay. It's okay if she started off as a troll for, let's say, ICSH, inferiority complex suffering haters, colorist haters. But that's not what you said to me. Well, not you, but that's not what she said to me. And that is problematic. And so when you speak, not being careful will cause you to seem unfair and unbalanced, because you'll actually say something that's unfair and unbalanced, not even due to an outright hate. You'll say it, you say something unfair and unbalanced because you simply weren't careful. Justice is a slippery slope. Walaikum salam, Abdullah Amariki. You know about this too. The reason is, in all honesty, I have said before that Islam is a solution, Abdullah. The thing is that I do also want to help folks to, I want to help folks to do something about the character, just like I have to work on mine and you got to work on yours, everyone does. I do want to give something that people can use to help work on their characters. I should say I can't help them per se, but I do want to give them something that will at least help them work on their own characters. Because you know what, Abdullah Amariki, I had a relative of mine, pretty closely genetically related, except he found the channel and he accepted. He accepted Islam. And here's the thing, I could not have stopped him, Abdullah. So when people do come in, what I have to do, what's going on, Absalam? What I have to do is this. When people do come in, I got to make sure that they come in with a character that's ready to stick with it. Because I'm also worried about people coming in and then finding that, or coming in and thinking that they can't stay committed, when in fact they can. And that's part of the reason why I focus on this. So that being said, see, being fair and being just is a slippery slope. And because we're human, we're going to make mistakes of fact that we don't know about. I may have done this. I'm sure I have at some point. But to be fair and to be just, at least to try to be fair and to be just, means that when you give some sort of ruling or you pick a side in something, what it does mean is that your mistakes have to be honest mistakes. And if they're honest, that's a far different cry from outright being biased. Because as humans, we are biased, but it's a far different cry from being biased in your actual practice. That's different. Ma salama, man. I'm reading yours now. Yeah. So it's a slippery slope. And it does take practice. And there's steps to this. And I'm not even a professional judge. But to be a fair person, which is a goal of mine, not something I'm saying I actually am doing. It's a goal, it's an attempt of mine. But to do that does involve steps when you're not a professional judge sitting on a bench, having gone to law school, didn't practice as an attorney. This is something that we have to pay attention to, all of us do. You see, first, the first step is that you start trying to preemptively control who you like and who you don't, in case you got to side against them later. That's the first step. Second step is that you're able to go ahead and still decide something that is against somebody that you like. You're able to oppose someone in a particular opinion when you like them, or in a conflict when you like them. That's the next step. Not just even though you like them, but even when you're aware of it. And there are more steps I'm sure I haven't reached yet. To listen to sides of stories that you don't like, may not even find entertaining. That's the next step, and it is important. That's one of the, that's actually very basic. It's not the next step, it's quite basic. By the same token, it does mean that there are going to be things that you're going to outright have to dismiss. One example is going to be if somebody's going to sit up here and insult the prophet. That's a quick way to get kicked out and blocked. I'm supposed to do that. It's nothing personal. Well, actually, it can be quite personal too. But the point I'm making is that it is a slippery slope, and it is something you got to work on all the time. And you have to start thinking in advance when you meet new folks, digitally or personally, face to face. You have to start thinking ahead of time that, you know what, I'm probably going to have to oppose this person that I like in something. And I might even have to give credit to someone that I not only don't like, but actually hate. There are times I've had to give Crystal Swirls credit for telling something that is true. There are times that I've had to nod my head in agreement when someone's talking. Like, let's say Rachel Dolezal 2.0. And in the manosphere, it's the same thing. There are people that I like and they say something I don't like per se. But when I have to give a nod of approval, it has to be because what they said is true and that they were walking a balance. And it also means that I might have to publicly give someone credit for something they said because it's true, and then privately go to them and say, did you say this right thing for the wrong reason? But more importantly, it also means that somebody may come back and say these things to me too. And I got to be ready for it. And before I even give an answer, I'm going to have to stop and think, did I say the right thing for the wrong reason? And that's a hard thing to gauge and to assess. I'm still practicing that. But if you can't at least take that seriously, you are 100% going to seem, even if you mean to be, you're going to seem unfair and unbalanced. If you're not ready for that, you're going to actually be unfair and unbalanced, even if you didn't mean to. But this is still something that we're all going to have to take as a goal and as an attempt. And I'm with Abdullah Mariki. I've already said on this channel, yeah, I'll tell you, Islam is a solution. There's no way I could force anyone, so why not go ahead and say it on the channel? And in any case, if you still believe in something else, what I would say is this: try to prep yourself for a day in which you're going to be judged. Try to prep yourself for that. That's one of the things that can help. And I'm going to be honest too about something else that triggers a lot of folks. And that's when people get blamed for something they didn't do. Naturally, they're going to, you know what? Yeah, people that get blamed for something they didn't do, and then they're told, shut up, don't try to defend yourself. They are really, really going to go off the handle. That's one thing that's gotten under my skin before. I mean, I have flipped the up out on people and roared Tried to speak and a sound came out that I didn't even expect. I didn't know my vocal cords can make. Happened a few years ago when I was living in a smaller town than what I'm in now. And actually turned out to be an American teacher. And he was having arguments with a Canadian, and the Canadian and I got along okay. The American was Muslim, and he and I got along fine. But then he turned to me and he said, "And you should have said something." And I was like, "What do you mean I should have said something? I didn't even know about these arguments. I can't talk to you." That was his answer. And I was like, you can actually. You just can't blame me for something I didn't do and then cut me off when I tell you I don't even understand what you're talking about. Because I really didn't. Anybody could go through that. Everyone's going to snap. And so when you're trying to be fair and balanced, you have to understand that you're still human. You're going to have a temper. So what you do is you not only try to control it, you also attempt to prevent the things that are triggers. So you really got to look into yourself to see when you're no longer going to be a fair judge of something, even if you have all the facts. What's going on, LOM? And I'm going to be honest too. If you're in the golden sphere, I'm going to straight tell you right off the bat. Manosphere has been pretty good about this. Now, granted, Manosphere is older. People have had more time to do this. And when newbies come in, they can get this influence from people that have been here longer and can actually give just and fair, balanced rulings or observations, at least observations. Not because everyone's always right, no, but because, in all honesty, they're just more practiced at it. To be honest with you, when I first heard about the manosphere, there were things that a lot of people said, and I made these quick judgments. And I was Muslim at the time. I should have known better, but I made these quick judgments. And then a few years ago, when I started to actually, when I found specifically the black manosphere, I realized, okay, if not, I can ask some of these men about some of the black content creators I know. And they gave me the scoop. And I found out that some of the things I had been hearing or some of the things I'd been seeing were not what I initially thought that they were. And you know what came back? Communism is, the Marxism is, Western European mercantilism and protectionism is. A lot of these things are. It's a combination of things. You're right. It's one of the reasons, and there are plenty of them. And yeah, I mean, at this point, we do have to save ourselves. And I want to straight up tell people, I want to let folks know that it's the same thing in this new sphere. The golden sphere, I got to say to the men of the golden sphere, I'm not telling you got to be mean to the ladies. I'm not telling you can't be nice to them and get along with them as well as you do. But what I am going to tell you men of the golden sphere is this: you're going to have to save yourself too. Not out of hatred. You're going to have to save yourself because the ladies in there are not ready. They're not ready for endogamy. They're not ready to undo a lot of the gynocentric programming of the hyenocracy from which they're defecting. They're not ready to undo it. They don't even want to admit that there is such a programming. They are defecting not because of how the hyenocracy treats them and you. They're defecting only because of how they've been treated. And that's not the way you do it. See, in order to be fair and balanced, that might mean that if somebody that I like is in a conflict with someone that I don't, but the one I like is wrong and the one I don't like is right, I still got to tell the one I don't like. I still got to tell the one I like, hey, that was out of line. I may have to tell him privately, but I got to tell him. Assuming I know what's going on. That's part of what that means. And I'm going to be honest with you. A lot of you men in the golden sphere, you came in through the manosphere. So you're looking at the ladies and you're like, well, they're defecting from the hyenocracy. They're determined to not be part of the problem. And they may really think that in their minds. But they don't still yet fully understand what even Rachel Dolezal 2.0 understood, which is that the hyenocracy is bad for men, and that's bad enough. It shouldn't have taken for them. If they really aren't interested in a gender war on a subconscious level, consciously, they're probably not. They say they're not, they probably aren't consciously. But if they're not ready to undo that subconscious programming, you'll know. because they will only be defecting from the hyenocracy based on how they were treated for being high yellow, not based on how you were treated for having a dingling. And that's how you're going to know, gentlemen. So Absalom, if you say that sector, then I think I may understand. But the thing is, you don't have to necessarily belong to one particular sector in order to be one. I'm not sure which sector it is, but if you did not denounce the faith at all and you're still making the prayers, then you count as a Muslim. And of course, there are other things people could do and say that could nullify their faith, but I won't go into that now because it's a long lesson. But if you denounce the sect, then that doesn't mean you denounce the whole entire faith. But we all have to look at, and we all have to research what are the things that we could do that nullify one's faith so that we can avoid them. And you know, the thing is, man, the black manosphere, I see to a certain extent it could be. But then again, there's a core group. And maybe I couldn't call them a core group, but it's a mixed bag. But the thing is that a lot of the ones who really are hustlers or they're hustling people aren't counted as that. And the good thing about it is that they get categorized as something different and they want that. They know they have to be. And I'll tell y'all straight, man, one of the solutions, and there is one solution I know about. And one solution is repatriation. Repatriation is one of them. And for the Muslim, it's hijrah. Because as I've had to tell someone earlier today, if you're trying, whether it's a golden community, a black community, take your pick, any percentage, one of the things that's going to have to happen is that we're going to have to give up on this idea. In the manosphere, we already know we got to give up on this idea of some sort of dogmatic endogamy. It's just not going to work. Hold on, y'all. Give me a moment. All right, gentlemen. Sorry about that. So that's one of the things it's going to have to be. If you were looking for continuing on into the next generation, then, I see what you're saying, Absalom. And that can happen. It depends on which one, but it can happen. In Atlanta, it's a bit different. To be honest with you, in Atlanta, the Africans and African Americans that are Muslim tend to get along very well. And it's cool. That's one of the good things about being there. Bad thing is that if you're a heterosexual black man, you're going to have a bad time in the job market. And if you're heterosexual black Muslim male, it's going to be even worse. That's the downside to it. So anyway, it's going to have to be that. SYSBM, SYSM, save yourself, man. Because right now what's going on is that no matter what defection there is from the hyenocracy, when it's not our defection, I hate to sound dogmatic, but this is an observation I've seen with my own eyes and heard with my own 2 ears. And when it changes, I'll tell you. But right now what's going on is that these defections that they have, the ladies might have, it ain't the same. In the end, what it's going to come down to is that, frankly, and unfortunately, gentlemen, I wish it wasn't the case, but it is. They're not ready for you. Even when ladies decide they're going to defect, a lot of times they're not ready for you. And someone even said that Crimson Q was only upset because she didn't have a place in the gynocracy, the hyenocracy. I don't know how true that is. I didn't hear that statement. But if that statement is not true, then she's one of the rare exceptions. Same with Melanie King. There are a few that are actually ready to not mistreat you. But for the most part, no. No, for the most part, many of them are not ready for that. And you're just going to have to move to where they are if you're trying to survive into the next generation. Now, that being said, I don't know if you all can hear it in the back, but they just called it the prayer over here. So I'm going to say the prayers, and then I'm going to go ahead and eat dinner because it's late here. And I'm gonna give y'all time to think about this. And I thank you all for tuning in, and thanks for listening. And as I usually say, Assalamu alaikum, black heart, black mind, blackout, and black heterosexual non-select male power just because they don't like it, and black patriarchy until extinction or judgment day. Assalamu alaikum.